Okay, so I think that I'm live. Someone give me a hello that I'm live. Yes. Okay, great. Hi, everybody. My name is Delilah Panio. I'm coming to you from sunny California. I have been a SheEO activator since the very beginning, as I am Canadian, since the very first year in Canada, and then brought SheEO to California 5 years ago. So what I'd love to talk to you about today is tips on how to get the funding you actually want. And I'm going to actually share my screen because in a few minutes, because there are lots of really great information that I want to share to make sure that you guys all have. So what we're going to talk about today is types of funding, funding sources, pros and cons of each, and how to determine the right ones for you and your business. Well, let's start with a big question. What is funding? When we think about funding, we are always told about this, this route of startup, get your friends and family money, get angel money, get venture capital, and then, magically sell it to Google or Facebook. And as we know, we've certainly been hearing about the stats today. Very few companies get that and very few women get that path. So what we're really talking about in funding is it's really about how will you pay to fund your company and to get your product and service to market and scale. So the question is it only about raising capital from external sources? So let me share my screen here with you so you can see what I'm talking about. Here we go. So can everybody see that? Hang on. Oh, I'm having an issue here. Hang on. Okay, can people see that? I honestly can't. Okay, this is not going to work because I can't actually see my screen properly here. All right, what? I'm going to stop sharing and I'm just going to talk you through it. Okay, so types of funding. External capital is the one that's always talked about, right? And that really we're talking about equity, debt, grants, getting money from external sources. And I'll get more into that in more detail in a bit because it's really important to understand all those sources of capital that you may not even be thinking about. But I also want to talk about what we rarely talk about, which is revenue, including pre-sales. So funding is also revenue. And I know, having coached so many companies, and in my day job, I work for the Toronto Stock Exchange, so I get bigger companies to go public. We often get really caught up in this hamster wheel. I've got to raise money, because that's how startups are done, and aren't thinking enough about revenue. And so I invite all of you to really be mindful of thinking about and researching. There are so many revenue models out there that you might not be thinking about. Really, really important that you can think about the different revenue streams for your business. And then another one that I love to talk about, which is collaboration or bartering. Just imagine, especially in this beautiful SheEO community, that there are women like you in your business that are thinking, okay, I need to raise this much money for all of these use of proceeds for my business, right? But what if you could collaborate with a couple other 3 or 4 women within the community and saying, you know what, I'm in marketing and tech or marketing sales, so I have that expertise. I will help you with that side of your business, and maybe you can help me with the tech. So the more that we're sharing resources or bartering, like in the good old days, the less money you actually have to raise for your business. So why not think about that, right? Now, on the funding landscape, because this is about thinking about all the funding sources out there for you. So external sources, I'm going to go through these, and then maybe we can send a link later. But external funding sources, thinking about your friends and family. Think about crowdfunding. If anyone just earlier saw Karen from I Fund Women, thinking about there's rewards-based crowdfunding, there's now equity-based crowdfunding. So look at those options. Look at accelerators and incubators. Think about debt options. So whether it's traditional loans, online. So think about Kiva. We all think about Kiva for international women, that we can all lend money to, but they're also here in the US, and that might be an option for you to get a loan from women like us, right? Peer-to-peer lending, revenue-based financing. If you haven't looked at that, make sure to really research that, because you may have a business that can actually, it makes sense for revenue-based financing. That's where you have a loan, but it's being paid back through your revenue, and that way you're not giving away equity in your company. Of course, we know about these angel investors out there, so people who are investing their own money, and then venture capital and private equity, again, more traditional, very difficult to get until you're, well, let's face it, as we've been hearing on the panels already today, for women of color. And so, but wonderfully, there are more and more venture capital funds or private equity, like my dear friend Tracy Gray, who's raising her fund. So make sure you're looking at those sources. Something else to think about, ladies, corporate or strategic investors. Think about in your business, what corporations would benefit from your success? And they might be a company you can go to that either already have a venture capital arm, as all the large companies do, or they might just be interested in investing in you because if you're successful, then it will help them in their business. So really think about that. Of course, there are the public markets when you get bigger, and when you're certainly ready for that, please come and talk to me. And another one to think about is your customers. Again, very few companies think about, okay, if I'm successful, my customers will be happy. So maybe within your customer base, now again, this is where you could really maximize the rewards-based or equity crowdfunding by going to your customers for that kind of funding. Or if you are in a B2B business, and looking at larger companies that might be interested in investing in you because they are your customer and they want you to succeed as well. And of course, as we're here, SheEO, new models that are emerging with great visionaries like Vicky in terms of a new way of funding a company. I want to talk to you about a couple of funding filters, what I call the Fortuna funding filters. So think about when you're thinking about any source of capital, whether it's debt, equity, crowdfunding, you want to think about it in two ways. One, is that funding option realistic to you? And two, is it desirable? So often, again, we're on the track of, looking for realistic funding options, but really you want to think about if it's desirable. So let me break that down. So realistic funding options. So is this particular funding option realistic to your business with the type of business that you're in, the industry that you're in, the stage of your business? Because realistically, the practical reality is some funding options are just not available to you because of your size and what you're building or kind of business you're building. As we heard earlier, most of the companies, the 99% companies, are not going to be eligible for venture capital. So you better be looking at the other options, right? So what is realistic? The type of business model, does it make sense? So for example, if you're not in revenue generating yet, then it's really difficult to look at traditional loans or even revenue-based financing because you can't service the debt. So thinking about those kind of realities of your business model. Another one really thinking about is your personal goals. Why are you building this business? And is this funding option going to be realistic for you to get there? And then think about your business vision and your goals. Is it realistic for these funding options? Are they in alignment? And of course, what is your exit and return on investment that you are looking at? And so again, making sure that from a reality point of view is what you're creating in line with that funding option. But I would say more importantly, and this is something that we rarely hear talked about, especially on the circuit and the venture capital and angel and even going public circuit, is what are your desirable funding options? And this is where you have to really take a step back and go to your why. Why are you building this company? What is it that you are trying to accomplish? And be really clear. Take that time to be, I'm building this company because I want to build a lifestyle company and just feed my family and employ a great amount of people. I want to bring this product or service to the world. I want to grow to be a multi-billion-dollar company and take this company public so I can exit and then go back and invest in a whole bunch of other amazing women entrepreneurs, which, by the way, I'm really a proponent of. So get to your why. And then when you are looking at the funding option, make sure that there is an alignment. Every external dollar can come with a cost. So make sure that you understand the cost and understand the motivation behind the type of each capital source, and make sure it's aligned with you and weigh the pros and cons. And don't be naive. Don't be naive about the practical reality of venture capital or private equity, for example, they raise a fund from institutional investors and they have very specific criteria and return on investment they have to meet. It is not personal, and which is part of the problem, which is why the system is broken. It's not personal at all. And so if that's just not in alignment with you, then don't take that money. It's amazing to me how many people I see chasing after source of capital that if they really, really knew the practical reality of that capital, they actually wouldn't want that money. So weigh the pros and cons. And so let's talk about that for a second. Pros. So again, looking at all those different sources of capital, and as you're doing your research and as you're working with your advisors or your management team around what are some potential sources of capital for what I'm doing today and how much money I need to raise to get to my next milestone within my company, thinking about the pros, thinking about the source. So are they coming just with the money, or are they coming with advice, contacts, access to customers and the marketplace, credibility? If you raise money from this person or this group is going to, bring in other investors because of that credibility. And I would say probably the most important, which is again, is rarely talked about, is support. Because I'm talking about business support, and I'm really talking about emotional and spiritual support, because inevitably it's going to get hard. And certainly we all felt this in the last year. It's going to get hard. There's going to be tough decisions to make. And you want investors on your team and on your cap table that are supporting you, and that, yes, it's going to be difficult to make that call, that things are not going as you'd hope, or you're not meeting that milestone, you ran out of money, whatever it is. But you want the person on the other line, like you get with the SheEO community, to be, okay, got it, let's roll up our sleeves and get to work. Or sometimes, you know what, let's have a good rant and a good cry about this, because you got to get that out, and there's no shame in that. And so you really want investors that are going to be there for you for that support, that you can trust. And so the cons, let's talk about the cons of the capital, right? So when you're analyzing a source of capital, think about what is the actual cost, and make sure that no matter if you're signing any agreement, whether it's a loan agreement, a crowdfunding, agreement online for equity crowdfunding, certainly any angel investor or venture capital, any legal agreement, that you really fully understand what it says and what the actual cost to you is going to be. What control is there, what reporting is there that required, the payback. And then the big one again, are they aligned? If they are not aligned with you and their motivation is not aligned with you, then be very wary about taking that capital. So I want to talk to you about investor avatar. So you know how we have our vision boards for our companies, for our life. So imagine doing a vision board for your investors or your cap table. Imagine the people 5 years from now on your cap table who have invested in you at your dinner table. So I love this concept. Imagine your cap table at your dinner table. So you want people, again, who are supportive, who bring all the things that investors can give to you, and that you actually want to be part of your team, because you're giving equity to these people. And I can tell you, it is probably easier to divorce your spouse than it is to get equity back in from your company once you give it out to anybody. So again, imagine your cap table at your dinner table. What investor is the right fit for you? And consider, it might not be a typical investor, like I said earlier. It could be customers, it could be people within your ecosystem, could be strategic investors, could be the SheEO community, there are so many different ways that it could be who your investors could be. And thinking again about what are they bringing besides the money, the contacts, industry knowledge, the support. Are your motivations aligned? Which again, make sure that you go back to your why. Is so, so, so important to be thinking about your why before you even start raising capital. So, I teach some online courses around, how to attract funding, and this is part of it. And the very first thing we talk about before we get into the money or even your business, is your business ready? Are you ready? Are you ready do you know why you're building this? And you understand what happens when you take external capital? And you know, in the meantime, while there are more wonderful models like SheEO being developed, in the meantime, you're still likely going to have to go to the traditional sources of capital. And so, are you ready to play in that world? Are you ready to play in that game? And it comes from understanding, knowing all these options, and really, again, being clear on your why. So I would say, take some time really to think about, again, why you're building this, what you want to build, have advisors around you that can help you really map out the different funding sources in your world or their world, and then really go through those pros and cons. And consider that you have to think about your long-term funding needs, and that every round of capital you're doing now will impact your ability to raise capital later, right? So if you're doing crowdfunding now, if you're taking angel investment, if you're taking venture capital, if you're thinking about going public, everything will impact whether you can do the ability to do the next round of capital. And so really, really think about that, and really think about, trusting your gut. Because I can tell you, having seen so many people raising capital, and I'm a judge at pitch competitions and seeing all these people running around, usually talking to the wrong source of capital that, one, is not realistic for them, but is really not desirable for them. So I can tell you that never take money from the wrong source, because I've seen so many companies, and if you ask them when they took that check, did they know that it wasn't the right money? And they always do. It's kind of like if you ask people who get divorced, on their wedding day, did they know? And they almost always do. So trust your gut. And as women, we are so powerful with our intuition, right? This is so powerful with our intuition. So really trust it. And this is where it could get hard, because if you have, the men on your board or other investors, and they will often tell you, this is the way it's done, or this is the right money to take. Always, always, always trust your gut. And remember, and this is the most important thing. Well, there's been a lot of important things about raising capital, but you are critical to them too. So there's this energy that, especially when I talk to women, is make sure when you're going into any capital source that you're holding the energy that they need you as much as you need them. You are brilliant. You are coming with a new idea, an innovation, something that they're not doing. And they are looking to you to especially with angel investors, which I'm sure, which most women on this will probably be talking to angel investors. So these are people who are going to invest their own money in you. And so you have to think about, and I love this saying, you had me at hello, right? So they're investing in you because you have the best idea. You're telling them a big market to go after, you have a real competitive edge, you have the best team, and you have the plan, and that you can execute. And so these are all those critical things to think about when you're raising money, but making sure that you have that energy about it. And, I was just listening to Lynn Twist, who I absolutely adore. Her, her book, The Soul of Money, changed my life many years ago. Having the mindset of not scarcity, talking about the myth of scarcity. And we do this certainly as women, and we do this of just, there's not enough money, we're not getting the venture capital, there's not enough money, but we know that there is enough money for all of us. It's just making sure that we're getting the right money. So I really encourage you to, again, be thinking about all the funding options. Explore revenue models, explore the opportunity to collaborate, to share resources. And that way you can be potentially raising less capital. You might not need as much capital as you might have thought. And then most importantly, start with your why. Start with, are you ready to raise capital? Do you want that capital? Understand the sources of capital. And then, is your business ready? Do you have all your business, admin, everything in order before you take on capital? All those things that we as entrepreneurs, because I've been an entrepreneur too, don't want to do. All, getting our legal agreements in place, our IP, et cetera, our contracts, our corporation, et cetera. Make sure that that's all buttoned up